Excuse me. Sorry. I had Burger King for lunch.
All right, so we're here with Ted, who is our NHRA tech official, and he's here to help certify the Canadian DSM project. So he's looking everything over at this time, and he's doing his routine, which we're going to stand back and let him do, but I thought I'd capture it for you guys on video so you can see what that's all about. So what this entails is obviously referring to the spec sheet and making sure that everything meets the requirements. The tube diameter and wall thickness is all to the requirements of the specs. And of course all the welds are in place, which is important. So what he's doing right now with Dom is just kind of talking through everything with him and educating him, and me for that matter, every time he's here on some of the different aspects of the different specs. Because initially, while we had him bring in the book, and we're planning on having him spec and certify this car for 650, after a conversation and a brief evaluation before starting to really dive in, it seems as though we're going to get this car to be spec'd for 25.1, which will be good for 6.0. And what he's doing right now is he's got a little tool that measures the diameter of all the tubing, all the various tubing, and that validates that we've used all the right diameters. Because, like, for instance, the dash bar is a different diameter than the overhead hoop and the main hoop, and there's various diameters throughout. And then he's also got another electrical device in his hand that he puts against the tube, and that measures the wall thickness to make sure that we've used the correct wall thickness. So if you're looking to get Ted a Christmas present to get on his good side, get him a spare set of these tools, okay? Anytime we have a car come in and have it built to meet NHRA specs and get it certified, we always have Ted come in before the vehicle leaves, and he does his thing, and the vehicle will leave here ready to go and enjoy some racing with peace of mind, knowing that they're not only safe, but they're going to get through tech inspection like a breeze. So traveling all the way across the country to places like Maryland to race at World Cup, the last thing you want to be thinking about is whether or not your car is going to pass tech inspection. Plus, an event like that over at World Cup, you have to have this stamped and certified, otherwise they won't let you race. But any other areas that you travel to, like Florida or Ohio, it's nice to have a peace of mind knowing that you're up to spec and you're going to pass tech. And this is that little device I was talking about that measures the wall thickness. Ultrasonic meter. Correct terminology here again. Always learning new things around Ted. And this is the crucial and official stamp of approval once we're done building a cage. The next step for us is to start working on the window net and getting that all measured and building out the bracketry so that holds in place. And then we're moving on to the tube front end.
I also check the quality of the welds and make sure they're not ground down or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no grinders on this cage. There's no grinding on the welds.
And if I had to grade these welds right here, I gotta give them an A.
Oh,
Give them an A.
I didn't pay him to say that. This is not a paid sponsorship.
Call it like I see it.
Brush those shoulders off. Yeah, well, you know, I spent endless hours here personally welding all this together myself personally.
Yeah, right. Okay. We know who the man is.
No, to be fair, this cage was not bent or built by me whatsoever. This was all Dom. This was, believe it or not, his first 25-point cage, and I think he did an awesome job. So, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first cage you've done with me that you pretty much did everything, like start to finish. I didn't have to get involved at all, which is a huge accomplishment. At this standard and at this level, that speaks volumes about how quickly he's progressed and how far he's come since he first started with me here. Because I can tell you, he came right out of welding school and was eager to start with me. He even stopped by before he went into school and was like, I'm gonna finish school and I'm coming here. And as soon as he finished, he came here. And the first day that he started working with me, I'm like, what did they teach you guys? What are they doing at school? And to be fair, they're teaching the students how to be set up for success in the world of commercial style welding for building buildings and park benches and all that other stuff that the village and the community needs and businesses. But this is really a specialty service, and unless you're going to like NASCAR or NHRA official schools, they're really not teaching this sort of thing at most schools. So don't get discouraged if you are going down the path of a welding school or you're just finished with a welding school and it's not making an easy transition for you into a career path here. You just have to be persistent and keep that motivation and faith towards your goals, and someone will give you a shot and you'll end up here. Well, maybe not here because I'm only, so big, but if you're interested, check us out and see if we're hiring. That's always something that comes up here and there. Plus we're expanding, as you know, into the new location next door. So just follow that passion and practice at home. Get yourself a welder and start messing with metal. Send it to a friend or send it to me, and I'll give you feedback on what you should do and what you should change about your strategy and your technique. But it looks like Ted is pulling out the paperwork now, and usually it's a good sign if it's this paperwork and not this paperwork. So, all right, so Ted just finished doing his thing, and we're very proud to have a stamp of official approval from the NHRA. This chassis is good to go for $650 in the quarter-mile, and to my delightful surprise, we have built ourselves a 25-1 spec cage as opposed to a 25-3. So right now, Dom's starting to work on the window net and the steering. So good things, exciting things.
All right, so we're at the point where both wastegates have been fully welded on, and I can confidently say that the hot side of everything is completely done. So from manifold to cross pipe to wastegate assembly, all done. So now we're at the point where we can transition from having this all open and exposed to putting these wheel arches back on, which I have been shaving to accommodate for the V-band clamps. So with that being said, I can now move back onto the intake side of things. So I have the intake back on, and I've implemented the blow-off valves up top here. Looks super sick. Still paying attention to making sure that everything is mirrored and parallel with each other. With that being said, if you come over here, this is the last of our logistical nightmares to figure out, because as the intake comes through here and as the wastegate sits along the frame rail here, you'll notice that the outlet for the radiator here comes pretty much right underneath it. So the last thing we want to do is sacrifice geometry or anything like that. We want to make sure that everything stays mirrored the entire time. We're not going to sacrifice that. So instead, we're just dealing with different types of fittings and problem solving to make sure that we can route the lines around all this stuff rather than the other way around. And as I've been doing all of this, we've had Jay route the fuel lines in a very tasteful manner too. We have the fuel rail hoses coming down under here very nicely, and we're having the regulator mounted to the firewall here along with the trans dipstick. Looks very nice, tasteful, and yeah, we're making our way. So now that the wheel well is back on, I can kind of figure out where we can kind of like implement these bends and make our way to the core support. but I'm gonna have to get to a stopping point soon because before I can figure out where these land, I have to also weld up these cast elbows to the turbos here so we can start kicking up the intake piping for these guys as well. So still a lot more to go, but real good headway.
So here we have a 92 Mustang. It's got a Coyote swap in it. Customer wanted a radium fuel cell installed, flush mounted in the trunk. So what we had to do was we had to come in here. We had to cut out the old spare tire area, and we ran 1.5-inch tubing for crossbars. Then we ran some 1/2-inch square tube across to support the actual cage that holds the cell in. And then we went ahead and painted everything in black enamel to make sure that kept all the elements out, made it look very clean and stealth. We took the customer's existing fuel lines, ran them up through a hole where they had them. There is no fuel pump in this vehicle at the moment, so we left them for the customer to install their own fuel pump. And if you'll bear with me, we'll bring it down and we'll take a look at the final product. So here we have a flush mounted radium fuel cell. We went ahead and painted the entire trunk area in black enamel to give it a nice uniform black look, to accent the brushed aluminum plate that we put in to cover the hole. We dropped in the fuel cell. It was very, very tight quarters because this fuel cell barely fits in here as it is, so there had to be intensive measuring and very, very detail oriented. Went ahead and, like I said, we put some weather stripping in here to keep all the elements out and keep everything nice sealed. Went ahead and put some black strip around the edges of the brushed aluminum as well, and there you are. One flush mounted radium fuel cell. So here on our Trans Am that we're building, we went ahead and made dash 20 lower radiator lines with tight radius fitting to form fit and to be out of the way of every hot pipe that's in this vehicle, because there are a lot of them. And on the top side, you can see up there, we went ahead and used a 160-degree bend for the top side of the water pump outlet. Excuse me. Sorry. I had Burger King for lunch. So up here on the top side, we installed a dash 16 water line for the top side of the radiator. Went ahead and put a 90 here along with a 45 with very, very tight clearances. And as well, we went ahead and installed one of Locar's brand new LSX retaining dipsticks. We gotta put that right there. So on boosted application cars, you want to always either retain it with a spring, or this one has a locking collar that retains it.
All right, what's up, guys? We've taken a couple days break from the Trans Am. We got some other things to address. Right now we have the 66 Nova behind me that we literally just finished this morning. So basically this Nova came in because his suspension was causing tearing in the chassis. And he was also coming in because there was some rot beginning to develop right underneath that torn section that I just mentioned. So that's been fully addressed now. And if you come over here, you'll notice that what we did is we removed the suspension joint that normally gets installed here with a bracket that I have on the table right there. And what we did was from the inside of the car, we took an 1/8 inch plate, drilled holes through it, and welded it to the interior side of the chassis for reinforcement to prevent tearing from happening ever again. And then once that was in place, there were those cracks that you saw in the picture. We zipped those up, ground them down flush so that the brackets could get mounted back up. And then we moved on to this section here, which was the rotted section I was talking about. So that's been fully cut out and replaced with fresh new material, same thickness. And then after everything was finished, we cleaned it all up, wire wheeled it, hit it with some acetone, and protected it with some nice epoxy paint. And before doing so, we ensured that the welds were protected with a RTV coating, like a seam sealer. So by the end of the day, we'll have the suspension back together and the car back on the ground. So before I was able to do all this work, Jay and I did the work of undoing the suspension and cradling it on these jacks here in order to support it. What was going on was before I was able to remove these exhaust sections, the suspension was so jacked up, it was actually bound up along the exhaust here, and I couldn't even get it out. So whoever installed the suspension previously didn't do so in a very proper manner, and that's what caused the tearing to begin with. So we're gonna make sure everything's tuned properly before the car leaves so that this never happens again.
All right, so today we ended up putting the transfer case back in the car along with carbon fiber drive shaft from Drive Shaft Shop. And then in the mix of other things, we've also got the catch can mounted to the trunk for the moment. So we've got all our lines running nice and clean through the cabin and back into the trunk. And we've got this custom can that we've set up. And I'm working on finishing up the vent and the drain. But we've got a massive 2.5 inch breather vent off of the top of this bad boy. And then dual -10 AN lines and a -16 line that are coming off of the valve cover and the block. As always, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to check us out for the next one.